Welcome to the third element in this series. This is actually the fourth video that you'd be tuning into, but this is the video that's going to deal with beer styles. It should be noted we're going to kind of hit this from 10,000 foot level, so it's kind of broad strokes, but I'll give you some references in the process, in the process of going through the slides that you can refer to get further information. So jumping right in. I want to point out in this slide that not all beer is the same. You'll see that center glass there in the middle, most representative of a Pilsner style beer, fizzy, yellow, very clean, very clear, served in a Pilsner style glass. But you can see on the sides it's flanked by various colors and clarities and headstands and glassware in particular. There are glasses that are more appropriate towards different styles of beer. So I point this out to let people know that not all beer is fizzy and yellow. It has a wide range of tastes and characteristics depending on the style, and then there are glasses that are more appropriate for each one. Everybody loves their pint glass, but in terms of presenting the beer in its best light and best way, there are glasses that are more appropriate for different styles of beer. Talk a little bit about the difference between ales and lagers. You can't decide something is an ale or a lager because of its color, its alcoholic strength. Just because some marketing guy decides it sounds better as an ale, you can't even legislate it. They have in Texas as recently as 2012. They had stuff on the law that said that if something was over 4% alcohol by volume, you had to call it an ale or a malt liquor. If it was under 4%, you had to call it a beer. Didn't matter what the definition, didn't matter what the beverage actually was. It was all about the alcohol and labeling requirements. So that said, real quick, broad shoot, the difference between an ale or a lager is the type of yeast that ferments that beer. Broad view of styles, lagers, most notable and popular styles there are Pilsners. Again, covered that in an earlier presentation that the Pilsner is probably the most popular style of beer in the world, just by the numbers. Other lager style beers are Oktoberfest or Marzens, Box, Doppelbock, etc. Your Baltic Porter, I throw that in there because that is a thick, dark, deep brown black beer, high in alcohol, but it is a lager. It is fermented with cooler temperatures using lager yeast, and again, I throw that in there just again for the argument that that color and alcohol strength does not make something an ale or a lager. On our ales, notable styles: the pale ales, the IPAs. You also include your English ales, your milds and bitters, and things of those ilk. Porters and stouts. Most of your Belgian styles, your Trappist style beers, your Abbey style, double, triple, the wit. Your wheat beers, Weizen or Weiss, and one could argue that the wit would belong in that wheat characteristic, in that wheat broader style. Saison, our farmhouse styles, kind of got their start in northeastern France, western corner of Belgium, that kind of blurred area there. And then some of your older styles, your Goes, your Grazer or Grodzicki, Kvass, Satzis. These are all kind of historical styles that one could be argued have been pulled back from the brink of extinction by a lot of our modern craft brewers, kind of giving this the revival. I'll just talk a little bit about sour beers. These are beers that have fermentation characteristics from yeast, but oftentimes also have a characteristic, a bacterial fermentation that's developing some of the characteristic flavors in there, the tartness and acidic sourness that's in there. Some of those styles are the lambic family, that include your straight lambics, your blended lambics or gueuze, your fruited styles that include the Kriek or Framboise, for English speakers, that's the cherry or raspberry. You have Flanders red style and your Oud Bruin. Those have again that tart and sour character. May also even have some kind of acetic or vinegary notes in there as well. Good reference for style descriptions is at bjcp.org. That's the website for the Beer Judge Certification Program. They've got some style guidelines that you can reference there. As homebrewers entering beers in competition, we use those as sort of the measuring stick for various styles. When we enter beers, we enter in a specific category, and we're trying to match the beer as closely as possible to those style descriptions. A little bit greater depth on lagers. The species of yeast is Saccharomyces uvarum. It was formerly known as Carlsbergensis, as referencing the Carlsberg beer brewery, where this work was first discovered. These are a bottom fermenting type of yeast. That means that the yeast colonies themselves, when they're in the fermenters, tend to flocculate and form towards the bottom of the column. They prefer cooler temps for fermentation that ranges 45 to 60 degrees or around there. Oftentimes the beers have characteristics noted as cleaner. They don't have a lot of fruitiness, if you will. Most of the flavors that you get in lagers are from the grain and the hops themselves, from the malt. Styles in lagers include Pilsners, Oktoberfest Marzen, your Bocks, and Doppelbocks. Again, the Baltic Porter that I noted earlier on the slide. In our ales, the species of yeast is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. There are various strains of that species. They're referred to as top fermenting. Means that the yeast form colonies and clumps, if you will, flocculate, form usually a thick, foamy, creamy head on the top of the fermentation column. The temps for fermentation are generally warmer in the 50 to 75, 76 degree range. Most notable in ales is a somewhat a fruity ale character. We talk about esters. Esters are the chemical name for chemical compounds that give a lot of those fruity aromas. What one gets a flavor from banana is ethyl acetate. Just to name one, but you'll get apple and pear esters. Again, characteristics and notable for ales. Some of the styles in here, again, any of the ales that we talk about, ale, the pale ale, India pale ale, also your English styles, your milds and bitters, porter stouts. Altbier and Kolsch are notable in the fact that they are ales, but they have a very clean lager type character, and that is from the brewing process and the fermentations. They're actually fermented at a cooler temperature and undergo a longer lagering or cellaring process to develop that really crisp flavor that's characteristic of Altbier and Kolsch. You also have your wheat beers, and again, the yeast strains that we use in wheat beers are notable for giving us that phenolic clove type aroma and the banana estery aromas. Finally, the sours and other styles. Sometimes you also heard these as spontaneous fermentations, wild fermentation, non-traditional, lambic, etc. Oftentimes when they're brewing these beers, they actually kind of allow the natural fauna, the wild yeast and bacteria, to infect, if you will, to inoculate the wort, and it's that that gives those various characteristics that we talk about in sours. I mention them because their popularity on this style of beer, these styles are growing. Some of the bugs or critters that are notable as fermenters in here, the Brettanomyces. It's a different yeast genus, but often called the wild yeast. And you have some bacteria, Lactobacillus, notable for lactic acid production there, Pediococcus, etc. These beers generally have that sour tart. Sometimes people refer to a bready or Brettanomyces character. And again, some of the styles, just to name them: lambics, including your Gueuze, Old Browns, Flanders Reds, and now you'll see a lot of American brewers are experimenting with these things, and we call them the American styles. So again, this was a very brief, a very broad look at some of the various styles of beer, but want to kind of whet your appetite, pique your curiosity maybe to check out these different beers. Visit that site, bjcpa.org. At the end of the program, I'll have a couple of other sites, and we'll try and post some more references on the volunteer website for the Craft Brew Fest. But I'm Vince, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off. Thanks very much.